I shocked family by dropping out of college, and now my sister is their idol. But they didn't know I became a blogger, and made thousands thanks to their lies, and now they. When I dropped out of college, my parents didn't just disapprove, they lost their minds. To them, I was throwing away the only chance I had to be worth something. My father yelled for hours, pacing the living room as if I had committed some unforgivable sin. My mother sat on the couch and cried, not because she was sad, but because she was embarrassed. "You've ruined your life," she said at least a dozen times that night. What they didn't know, what I hadn't told them yet, was that I wasn't just sitting around doing nothing. For the past 6 months, I'd been working on my Instagram blog. It started as a place to share stories and random thoughts about growing up in a family that constantly compared me to my perfect sister, Emily. I didn't hold back. People connected with it, shared it, and before I knew it, I had thousands of followers. Then came the money. Companies started reaching out, offering to pay me for sponsored posts. By the time I left college, I was making a few thousand a month, more than most of my classmates with part-time jobs were making. But when I tried to explain it to my parents, they wouldn't listen. An Instagram blog? My dad scoffed. "You think that's a real job? You're pathetic. You'll never be anything." My mother added. And of course, they raised Emily. She was their golden child, the pride of the family. Straight A's, scholarships, internships, the works. She was the best thing that ever happened to them. As they liked to say. Me? I was the failure. The mistake. I didn't argue with them. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds about me. But what they didn't know was that I kept a record of everything they said. Every cruel comment, every time they called me a failure, it all became fuel for my blog. And that blog? It was about to make them famous in a way they never expected. Family dinners have always been a spectacle. My parents treated them like performances where Emily got to shine and I was the unwilling background character. She'd tell stories about her latest academic accomplishments or how her professors just couldn't stop praising her. While my parents hung on every word, I usually sat there picking at my food, waiting for the show to end. But this time was different. My dad turned to me, almost as if he'd forgotten I was there, and asked, "So, what are you doing with your life now? Or is it still nothing to write home about?" I knew he was baiting me, but I'd had enough. "Actually, I've been working on my blog. It's going pretty well." My mom snorted. "That Instagram thing? You're still wasting time on that nonsense?" Emily chimed in with a grin. "You know, most people your age are getting real jobs. You might want to consider it." I smiled, keeping my cool. "It's not nonsense. It's a business. I have over 100,000 followers now, and I made $12,000 last month." The silence that followed was deafening. My dad froze in mid-bite, my mom's fork clattered on her plate, and Emily's smug expression vanished. For once I was the center of attention, and they didn't know what to do with it. Finally, my father broke the silence. "You're lying. That's not possible." "Why would I lie?" I asked, still calm. "I've been running a blog for months. I talk about my life, my experiences, and what it's like to be treated like the family failure. People relate to it, and they've supported me in ways you never did." My mother's face turned bright red. "You've been posting private family matters online? To strangers?" "They're not strangers. They're supporters. And they're the only ones who ever made me feel like I wasn't a mistake." My father's reaction was explosive. He slammed his hands on the table and yelled about respect and how I was disgracing the family. Emily, of course, tried to chime in with something snarky, but even she seemed rattled. Then my father said the words that changed everything. "Get out of this house. If you can't respect this family, you don't belong in it." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was exactly what I expected. "Fine," I said, standing up. "You've been making it clear for years that I don't belong here. Thank you for confirming it." I went upstairs, packed my things, and left that night. I didn't cry, and I didn't look back. For the first time in my life, I felt free of them. When I left my parents' house that night, I didn't know where I was going. My options were limited, but there was one person I knew would take me in without hesitation: my grandfather. Grandpa had always been different from the rest of my family. While my parents were obsessed with appearances and accomplishments, Grandpa couldn't have cared less. He'd lived his life on his own terms, working hard, staying humble, and never giving a damn what people thought. When I showed up at his house with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, he didn't ask a single question. He just opened the door, looked at me and said, "Well, I guess you'll be staying for dinner." That was it. No lectures, no judgment, just a hot meal and a place to sleep. Living with Grandpa turned out to be just what I needed. His house was quiet, his rules were simple, and most importantly, he didn't treat me like a failure. He would occasionally ask about my blog, not because he fully understood what I was doing, but because he wanted to know that I was happy. And I was. More than I'd been in years. With my parents' constant negativity out of the picture, I threw myself into my work. My blog became a huge success. I shared stories about growing up in a family where I was always second best, where every conversation seemed to end with, "Why can't you be more like Emily?" People ate it up. They shared their own experiences in the comments, sent me messages of support, and cheered me on as I grew. My follower count skyrocketed, and the sponsorships came in faster than I could handle. I was making more money than I ever thought possible for someone who didn't have a degree. Meanwhile, my family pretended I didn't exist. My parents never reached out to me, and Emily made sure to rub it in my face on social media. Every other post was about the amazing gifts she got from our parents' jewelry, vacations, a brand new phone. She basked in their attention, posting captions like, "So lucky to have the best parents ever." I didn't care. I wasn't bitter. If anything, it only reinforced what I already knew. I was better off without them. Grandpa, on the other hand, became my biggest cheerleader. He didn't fully understand the world of social media, but he loved hearing about my successes. "You're doing good, kid," he said one night at dinner. "They'll figure it out someday. And if they don't, it's their loss." He was right. I didn't need my parents' approval anymore. I was building something real, something that mattered, and I was doing it on my own terms. It didn't take long for word to get back to my parents about what I was doing. Someone, probably one of Emily's nosy friends, found my blog and sent it to them. I can imagine their faces as they scrolled through my posts, reading every story I'd shared about the way they treated me. I didn't hold back on the blog. I wrote about how they called me a failure, how they compared me to Emily, how they once told me I was the family's biggest regret. People online rallied behind me, leaving comments like, "You're better off without them," and "Keep shining, your success is the best revenge." When my parents finally confronted me, they didn't call or text. They let Emily do it. She sent me a message dripping with passive aggressiveness. "Mom and Dad saw your little blog. They're furious, by the way. How dare you broadcast our private family business to strangers? It's disgusting. You're embarrassing them. You're embarrassing me." I didn't answer. What was the point? A week later, I got a message from my dad, short and cold. "Take that garbage down. You're embarrassing this family. You're not welcome back until you do." I laughed when I read it. Welcome back? As if I wanted to come back to a house where I'd be treated like a disappointment? No, thank you. What they didn't understand was that their behavior had built my success. Every cruel word, every dismissive comment, every time they made me feel less than, they had given me the material that made my blog explode. I thought about responding to my father's message, but in the end, I just let it sit there, unread. Let them stew. Let them watch from the sidelines while I flourished. They couldn't handle the truth, and it wasn't my problem anymore. I wasn't surprised when they showed up at Grandpa's house. My parents were nothing if not predictable, and when they realized I wasn't going to take down my blog, they decided to escalate things. I heard the knock on the door and looked out the window. Sure enough, there they were, my mom, my dad, and Emily, all looking furious. Grandpa looked at me as I got up from the table. Should I tell them to go away? He asked, half joking. I shook my head. No, I'll do it. When I opened the door, my father wasted no time. We need to talk, he said, pushing his way inside without waiting for an invitation. My mom and Emily followed close behind, their faces set in matching scowls. Fine, I said, leaning against the wall. Talk. My dad started immediately. What you're doing is illegal. Recording private conversations without consent, sharing our personal lives online. You can't just air dirty laundry like that. If you don't take it all down, we're going to report you to the police. I stared at him, letting the words sink in. Then I shrugged. Go ahead. Report me? That startled him. He blinked, clearly expecting me to back down. You think this is a joke? No, I said calmly. I think it's hilarious. You're not angry because I broke any laws. You're angry because people are finally seeing the truth about you. And for the record, I didn't record anything without permission. Everything I've shared is my own experience, and I have the receipts to prove it. My mother tried to chime in, but I cut her off. You've spent my whole life trying to control me, and now that you can't, you're scrambling. It's pathetic. And honestly, I don't care anymore. That was the moment they realized they had no power over me. My dad's face turned red, my mom looked like she was going to cry, and Emily just folded her arms and glared at me like I'd committed some unspeakable crime. Then Grandpa came into the room, wiping his hands on a tea towel. If you're done wasting my grandson's time, he said, you can see yourselves out. This is not your house, and you're not welcome to bully him here. They didn't argue with Grandpa. They knew better. My dad mumbled something under his breath. My mom turned on her heel, and Emily gave me one last look before they all stormed out. After my parents and Emily stormed out, I sat at the kitchen table, still trying to process everything. Grandpa poured himself a cup of coffee, leaned against the counter, and gave me a long, thoughtful look. You're not letting this get to you, are you? He asked. I shook my head. No. I mean, I'm used to it by now. But I hesitated, not sure if I wanted to say it out loud. But what? Grandpa asked, sitting across from me. I sighed. I just don't get it. Why do they hate me so much? What did I ever do to them? They treat Emily like she's some kind of saint, and act like I'm some mistake they're stuck with. Grandpa didn't answer right away. He sipped his coffee, his eyes distant, as if he was thinking hard about something. Then he set the cup down and leaned forward. Are you sure you want the truth? He asked. I nodded. Of course. He let out a heavy breath. Your parents didn't plan on having you. When your mom got pregnant with you, they were in a bad place, fighting all the time, struggling with money. They thought having another child would make things worse, not better. I felt a strange mix of emotion, shock, anger, and a strange kind of clarity. So they didn't want me? Grandpa shook his head. At first, no. But it's not just that. After you were born, they realized something: they couldn't control you like they could Emily. You weren't the type to follow their plans or fit into their perfect little picture of what life should be like. And instead of trying to understand you, they resented you for it. I sat back and let his words sink in. It made sense in a painful way. All my life I'd felt like an outsider in my own family, like I could never live up to the image of the ideal son they wanted. Now I knew why. But why would they treat Emily so differently? I asked. Grandpa smiled bitterly. Because Emily plays their game. She does what they want, says what they want to hear, and makes them think they're perfect parents. They're not. And that scares them. I sat there in silence, trying to make sense of it all. Part of me wanted to feel hurt, but another part of me felt relieved, like I finally had an answer to a question I'd been asking my whole life. Grandpa reached over and squeezed my shoulder. Listen, kid. You're not the problem. They are. And if they can't see the good in you, that's their loss. Don't waste another second trying to please people who don't deserve you. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Grandpa was right. I didn't need their approval. I never had it. After Grandpa's unexpected revelation, I threw myself into my blog even harder. The truth about my parents, their favoritism, and their disdain for me became a running theme. My audience loved the raw honesty, and each video I posted brought in more views, more followers, and more support. One day, while brainstorming content ideas, I noticed a recurring question in the comments. Where are your parents now? Do you ever talk to them? The more I saw it, the more it stuck in my head. I wasn't in touch with them, but I was intrigued by the idea of showing people how things really were. So, as a joke, I decided to go back home and film the experience. The plan was simple: show up at the house, record their reaction, and leave. I wasn't expecting much more than some awkward conversation and maybe a few heated words. What I got instead was chaos. I knocked on the door, camera rolling, and waited. My mom answered, her expression going from surprise to anger in about 2 seconds. "What are you doing here?" she snapped. "I thought I'd come by and say hello," I said, keeping my tone light. "You know, for old time's sake. Turn that thing off," she said, pointing at my camera. "No can do," I replied. "My followers have been asking for you. I thought it was time to give them an update." By then, my dad had joined her at the door. He took one look at the camera and exploded. "You think this is funny? You've humiliated us enough with your stupid videos. Get out of here!" I stayed calm, even though part of me wanted to laugh at how predictable they were. "Relax. I'm just here to see if you miss me. We don't want you here," my mother hissed. "You're nothing but an embarrassment. Get off our property." At that point, Emily appeared in the background, grinning like she'd won some invisible contest. "Still trying to make yourself relevant?" she said. "Pathetic." I didn't argue. I just smiled, waved to the camera, and said, "Well, folks, there you go. Family reunion over." As I walked away, I knew I had struck gold. When I uploaded the video, it exploded within hours. People couldn't believe how toxic my family was, and the comments poured in with support. By the end of the week, the video had over 2 million views, and my follower count skyrocketed. Brands reached out with bigger offers, and my income took another jump. My parents had tried to cut me out of their lives, but they'd only made me more successful. It was poetic. In a way, everything they did to push me down only helped me soar higher. Watching that video get millions of views was surreal. It wasn't just the numbers, it was the comments. People from all over the world were sharing their stories, talking about their own toxic families, their struggles to break free, and how my videos made them feel less alone. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just telling my story. I was giving a voice to people who felt invisible, just as I had for so long. But as much as I loved the support, it also forced me to reflect on everything that had happened. My family wasn't going to change. My parents weren't going to wake up one day and realize they were wrong. And Emily? She'd continue to be their golden child, soaking up their attention and gifts, while I remained the black sheep. I used to wonder what was wrong with me, why I could never be what they wanted, why I was never enough. But Grandpa helped me see the truth. It was never about me. It was about them. Their need for control. Their obsession with appearances. Their inability to accept that I didn't fit into the little box they'd created for their perfect family. And honestly, I'm okay with that now. I don't need their approval. I don't need their validation. I have something they'll never understand: freedom. I'm building a life on my own terms, surrounded by people who actually care about me. My grandfather, my audience, and the friends I've made along the way, they're my real family. As for my parents and Emily, I wish them the best, I really do. But I'm done chasing people who just want to tear me down. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. Letting go of the idea that you need someone's love or approval to be happy? That's freedom. I'll keep making my videos, sharing my story, and growing in ways they never thought I could. And if they ever decide they want to be a part of my life again, the door is open, but only if they're willing to meet me where I am, as the person I've become.